If you have ever walked through a deep Nordic forest, you know the exact kind of silence I am talking about. It is not an empty silence, it is heavy. The towering spruce and pine trees seem to swallow the sound of the outside world, leaving only the rhythm of your own footsteps, the snap of a twig, and, eventually, the distant sound of running water. For centuries, people who lived near these dark woods knew that the water was not just a geographic feature. It was alive, and if you wandered too close to the edge of a rushing brook or a glassy black lake at twilight, you might hear something beneath the sound of the water, a melody. It starts faint, so faint you might think it is just the wind moving through the reeds. But then it catches a rhythm. It sounds like a violin, played with a beauty so profound and so steeped in sorrow that it anchors your feet to the ground. You have just met Näcken. In Swedish and broader Scandinavian folklore, Näcken is a water spirit. But to call him just a spirit or a monster misses the poetry of what he actually represents. He is the personification of the water itself. Beautiful, mesmerizing, but incredibly dangerous to those who do not respect its depths. Unlike the monsters in fairy tales that jump out from the shadows to frighten you, Näcken does not have to chase you. He doesn't want to hunt. He wants you to come to him, and he uses his music to do it. Imagine standing on a wooden bridge as the sun dips below the horizon. The sky turns a deep, bruised purple. The music swells. The lore says that Näcken's fiddle playing is so enchanting that it bypasses your rational mind. It speaks directly to a deep, primal part of your soul. People who heard it reported feeling a sudden, overwhelming urge to dance. But it wasn't a joyous dance. It was a trance. They would dance through the trees, scratching their arms on the branches, tearing their clothes, entirely unaware of the physical world, drawn closer and closer to the riverbank. The music makes you forget where you are. It makes you forget the cold. It makes you forget that human lungs cannot breathe underwater. You just want to get closer to the source of that beautiful, sorrowful sound. But why is the music so sad? According to the old stories, Näcken plays not out of malice, but out of an eternal, crushing loneliness. He is a creature of the earth, bound to the rivers and the lakes. He watches humans live, love, and pass on, while he remains, immortal and isolated in the cold, dark water. Some legends say he plays his violin because he knows he will never be granted salvation. He has no soul. He is just the water. One of the most unsettling things about Näcken is that he rarely reveals his true form, if he even has one. In the minds of the old villagers, he was a master shapeshifter, a creature who could alter his appearance to match the specific desires or vulnerabilities of whoever happened to be walking by. To a lonely traveler at night, or a young woman walking home from a nearby village, he would appear as a breathtakingly handsome young man. He would be sitting naked in the rushing waters of a waterfall, or perched on a rock in the middle of a stream, his long golden hair catching the moonlight. He would be holding his violin, smiling warmly, looking completely harmless, yet impossibly captivating. But to an old fisherman, or a weary farmer crossing a stone bridge, Näcken might choose a completely different disguise. He might appear as an old, frail man with a long gray beard, sitting quietly on the bank with a fishing rod. He would look like someone who belonged there, someone you could trust. But if you looked closely, if you didn't let the music cloud your eyes, there was always a giveaway. Folklore says that no matter what human form Näcken took, he could never fully hide his true nature. If you looked down at his feet, you would notice they were inverted, or that his clothes were dripping wet, even if he had been sitting in the sun for hours. Perhaps his most famous and most terrifying transformation was not into a man at all. In many parts of Scandinavia, particularly when he wanted to target children, Näcken would transform into a magnificent, pure white horse. This creature is known in lore as the Bäckahäst, the brook horse. Imagine a group of children playing near the edge of a meadow on a foggy afternoon. Suddenly, out of the mist, walks a beautiful white horse. Its coat is flawless, gleaming, and it seems incredibly gentle. It walks right up to the children, lowering its head, practically inviting them to ride it. One child climbs onto its back, then another. And this is where the dark magic of the Bäckahäst reveals itself. The horse's back would magically stretch, growing longer and longer to accommodate more children. But the moment the last child climbed on, the horse's gentle demeanor would vanish. The children would realize, with horror, that they were stuck. Their hands and legs would be physically bound to the horse's coat, glued by supernatural force. With a sudden, terrifying speed, the Bäckahäst would gallop straight toward the deepest part of the river. The children could only scream as the creature leapt into the dark, churning water, dragging them down into the depths below. It is a grim story, but it served a very real purpose. Parents used the legend of the Bäckahäst to keep their children away from dangerous, fast-moving rivers. It was a boogeyman, yes, but one born out of a deep respect for how quickly water can take a life. Whether as a handsome musician, a harmless old man, or a beautiful white horse, Näcken's goal remained unchanged. He was the personification of temptation. He represents that quiet, dangerous voice in the back of your mind that tempts you to step off the safe path and look just a little bit closer into the dark. Because Näcken was such a constant presence in the minds of those living in the old Swedish countryside, people naturally developed ways to protect themselves. They needed rules to survive him. And in Scandinavian folklore, the ultimate weapon against spirits of the earth and water was always the same: steel. If you had to cross a river at night, or if you had to wash clothes by the lake after the sun went down, you would carry a piece of iron or steel with you, a pocket knife, a needle, or even a simple iron nail. Before approaching the water, you would throw the iron into the stream or drop it at the water's edge. The presence of the metal would bind Näcken's magic, rendering him powerless to play his music or shift his shape. But if you didn't have iron, your only weapon left was his own identity. The old stories say that if you heard his music and felt your feet beginning to dance against your will, you had to shout his name into the dark. By loudly proclaiming Näcken or Nix, you broke his illusion. The music would instantly stop, the trance would shatter, and he would dive back into the depths with a frustrated splash. Yet, despite the danger, not everyone feared Näcken. In fact, some actively sought him out. Throughout history, there were musicians, fiddlers and pipers who wanted to be more than just good. They wanted to be legendary. They wanted to play melodies that could make an entire room weep, or make people dance until they dropped from exhaustion. And they knew there was only one teacher who could grant that kind of power. To learn from Näcken, a musician had to go to a crossroad or a rushing waterfall on a Thursday night, a night deeply tied to magic and Odin in northern lore. They would bring an offering, usually a black ram or a drop of their own blood, and they would wait by the water. If Näcken accepted the offering, he would appear. He would take the musician's fiddle and tune it, or he would hold the musician's hands, guiding their fingers across the strings. The lesson was instant. When the musician returned to the village, their music was supernatural. They could control the emotions of anyone who listened. But gifts from the water always come with a price. The lore warns that these musicians rarely lived happy lives. The music they learned was infectious, a curse masquerading as talent. There are stories of fiddlers who started playing at a wedding only to realize they couldn't stop. The magic of Näcken would take over their hands. They would play through the night, their fingers bleeding, the villagers dancing frantically, unable to sit down, until the morning sun finally broke the spell, or until the exhaustion took them. By bargaining with the water spirit, these musicians had given up a piece of their humanity. They became extension cords for Näcken's own eternal melancholy. Today, the old wooden bridges have mostly been replaced by concrete highways. The deep forests of Scandinavia are mapped, and the rushing streams are managed. We don't carry iron nails in our pockets when we walk past a lake at twilight anymore. But the next time you find yourself near the water as the day turns to night, just pause for a moment. Listen to the rhythmic lap of the water against the shore. Listen to the wind moving through the reeds. If you quiet your mind enough, it is not hard to understand why our ancestors saw something alive in those depths. The water still carries that same ancient mystery. It still holds that same quiet, hypnotic pull that makes you want to stop, look down into the dark reflection, and just drift away for a moment. Maybe Näcken was never a monster at all. Maybe he was just a way for us to explain the overwhelming, beautiful loneliness of nature. A reminder that there are still parts of this world that are wild, untamed, and deeply mysterious. Thank you for walking with me through the forest today, and for diving into the lore of the water spirit. Wherever you are, whether you are winding down for the night or just taking a break from a busy day, I hope you found a little bit of peace in the quiet. Until next time, stay safe on the path and sleep well.